For centuries, European maps showed a kingdom that no longer exists. It was not a myth. It was not a legend. It was not a mistake. It was a real political power that appeared on official charts, treaties, and royal records, then slowly vanished as if erased by design. Historians would later discover that this kingdom did not fall in battle, was not destroyed by natural disaster, and was not absorbed peacefully. It was deliberately removed from history. The kingdom existed on the edges of major European powers, positioned between empires that constantly shifted borders. Its land lay along vital trade routes connecting east and west, north and south. Merchants passed through its cities. Diplomats negotiated with its rulers. Armies respected its boundaries. Yet today, its name is absent from textbooks, atlases, and mainstream historical narratives. Early medieval maps clearly marked its borders. The kingdom appeared with fortified cities, rivers, and royal insignias. Latin documents referenced its kings. Church records acknowledged its dioceses. Taxes were collected. Laws were enforced. This was a functioning state, recognized by Europe's greatest powers. The kingdom's strength came from geography. Mountain ranges protected its northern borders. Dense forests shielded its interior. Rivers acted as natural highways for commerce and defense. This strategic position allowed the kingdom to control trade without expanding aggressively. It survived by balance rather than domination. Its rulers practiced diplomatic neutrality. They avoided large-scale wars by acting as mediators between rival empires. When conflicts erupted, the kingdom provided safe passage, food supplies, and negotiation grounds. This made it valuable, but also dangerous. Neutral states attract suspicion when power dynamics shift. The kingdom's culture was unique. Its people spoke a language that blended multiple linguistic families. Scholars later described it as a linguistic bridge, containing elements of Romance, Slavic, and ancient pre-Indo-European roots. This made the population distinct from surrounding nations. Identity was preserved through strict cultural traditions and localized governance. Religion played a central role. The kingdom followed a hybrid spiritual system. Christianity existed alongside older ritual practices tied to nature, seasons, and ancestral worship. Churches stood next to sacred groves. Religious tolerance defined the state, but it also attracted hostility from more rigid powers. Its capital city was a marvel of medieval engineering. Stone walls encircled marketplaces filled with goods from across Europe and Asia. Water systems ran beneath streets. Libraries stored manuscripts copied by local scholars. The kingdom invested heavily in education, training scribes, mathematicians, and engineers. The ruling dynasty maintained power through councils rather than absolute monarchy. Nobles, elders, and guild leaders held voting authority. Laws were written, revised, and publicly displayed. This system limited royal power and created stability. It also slowed decision-making during times of crisis. The first signs of danger appeared during the rise of centralized empires. As neighboring kingdoms consolidated power, neutrality became unacceptable. Empires demanded allegiance. They wanted borders simplified, culture standardized, and authority unified. The mysterious kingdom refused. Diplomatic pressure followed. Trade routes were redirected. Alliances excluded the kingdom. Merchants were taxed heavily when passing through neighboring lands. Slowly, economic isolation began. The kingdom remained stable, but cracks formed beneath the surface. Then came the treaties. Several European powers signed agreements redefining borders. These treaties were negotiated in distant capitals without the kingdom's representation. On paper, its territory was divided among larger states. Maps were redrawn. The kingdom was not mentioned as an independent entity. It still existed physically, but legally, it was erased. Armies did not immediately invade. Instead, administrators arrived. New tax systems were imposed. Local laws were replaced. Officials demanded loyalty to foreign crowns. The kingdom resisted through bureaucracy rather than violence. Courts rejected foreign authority. Records continued to use the old royal seal. This resistance triggered retaliation. The first military occupation occurred under the justification of restoring order. Soldiers entered border cities and established garrisons. They avoided destruction, preserving infrastructure for future control. The goal was absorption, not annihilation. Local leaders were arrested quietly. Nobles disappeared into foreign prisons. Elders were accused of treason. The ruling dynasty was stripped of recognition. Their name was removed from official documents. Coins bearing their insignia were melted down. Language suppression followed. Schools were forced to teach foreign tongues. Public use of the native language was discouraged, then banned. Legal documents were rewritten. Church services shifted to approved languages. Within 2 generations, fluency dramatically declined. The kingdom's name began disappearing from maps. Cartographers revised atlases to match new political realities. Borders shifted. Labels changed. What once stood clearly marked was replaced by neighboring states' names. Older maps were discarded or archived. New editions omitted the kingdom entirely. Historians employed by imperial courts rewrote chronicles. The kingdom was reduced to a footnote, then removed altogether. Its rulers were described as local governors rather than kings. Its independence was reframed as a temporary rebellion. Cultural erasure intensified. Festivals were banned. Traditional dress was labeled primitive. Songs and oral histories were discouraged. Sacred sites were repurposed or destroyed. Libraries were confiscated. Manuscripts vanished into private collections or burned. Despite this, resistance survived in silence. Rural communities preserved traditions secretly. Language lived on in homes and forests. Elders passed stories at night. Symbols were hidden in embroidery, carvings, and architecture. Identity became an act of defiance. The final blow came during a continental war. Empires mobilized massive armies. The former kingdom's territory became a battlefield. Cities were damaged, populations displaced. After the war, borders were finalized again. This time, there was no ambiguity. The kingdom was gone in every legal sense. Post-war treaties confirmed its erasure. No mention, no acknowledgement, no compensation. In the decades that followed, scholars questioned inconsistencies. Old maps contradicted new ones. Archived documents referenced a state that no longer existed. Church records listed dioceses with no modern equivalent. These anomalies sparked quiet investigations. Modern historians uncovered the truth through fragmented evidence. Coins unearthed by farmers, royal seals found in monasteries, treaties referencing an unnamed neutral power, linguistic studies revealing a suppressed language beneath modern dialects, architecture that did not match surrounding styles. The kingdom was real. Its erasure was intentional. It threatened imperial narratives. Its neutrality undermined centralized control. Its culture resisted assimilation. Removing it simplified history and legitimized conquest. Today, its descendants live scattered across several nations. They often don't know their origins. Their surnames carry traces. Their folklore contains echoes. Their language survives in isolated phrases and place names. The kingdom lives in absence. Its greatest legacy is silence. As the 20th century progressed, the erased kingdom became a problem for historians who noticed patterns that did not align with official narratives. Borders in this region behaved differently from others in Europe. Administrative divisions changed repeatedly, yet cultural continuity remained unusually strong. Villages separated by modern borders shared the same customs, burial practices, and oral traditions. This continuity pointed to a single political and cultural core that once unified them. Archaeological discoveries deepened the mystery. Excavations revealed fortifications built to a unified design across a wide area now split between multiple countries. These structures shared identical measurements, stone-cutting techniques, and defensive layouts. They were not the work of separate local rulers. They were part of a centralized system planned by one authority. Burial sites told the same story. Graves followed a standardized orientation. Grave goods showed consistent symbolism. Jewelry carried repeated motifs not found in neighboring cultures. These symbols appeared again and again, carved into stone, metal, and wood. They represented a shared identity that predated modern borders. Linguists uncovered further evidence. Regional dialects across the area contained words that could not be traced to Latin, Germanic, or Slavic roots. These words followed their own internal logic. They formed grammatical patterns unique to a lost language. This language had once been spoken by an entire population before being systematically replaced. The language was not primitive. It had specialized terms for law, governance, agriculture, astronomy, and trade. This indicated a literate society with complex administration. Fragments of inscriptions were found on boundary stones and ceremonial objects. The script did not fully match any known alphabet. Some characters resembled early European scripts, while others appeared entirely unique. Church archives preserved accidental proof. Early baptismal and marriage records used names that no longer exist in modern usage. These names followed a structure that did not align with surrounding cultures. They belonged to a people whose identity was deliberately diluted over centuries. Political records from imperial courts revealed calculated silence. When annexation occurred, the kingdom was described using vague terms like territory, region, or borderland. Its royal lineage was never acknowledged. Its treaties were declared obsolete. Its sovereignty was retroactively denied. This denial served a purpose. Acknowledging the kingdom would have exposed illegal annexations and violated existing treaties. It would have revealed that powerful states expanded not through rightful succession, but through manipulation and force. Erasing the kingdom protected imperial legitimacy. Education systems reinforced the erasure. School textbooks skipped directly from ancient tribal settlements to imperial rule. Centuries of independent governance vanished from timelines. Students grew up unaware that their homeland had once been a sovereign state. Maps played the most powerful role. Cartography shapes memory. Once the kingdom's name disappeared from maps, it disappeared from public consciousness. Generations grew up seeing borders as permanent and natural. Few questioned what existed before. Those who did question were dismissed. Early scholars who attempted to revive the kingdom's history faced resistance. Their work was labeled nationalist, unscientific, or politically dangerous. Funding disappeared. Publications were blocked. Academic careers stalled. Yet the evidence continued to surface. During infrastructure projects, ancient roads emerged beneath modern highways. These roads aligned perfectly across borders, proving they were part of a unified transportation network. Milestones carried symbols matching those found on royal seals. Local legends preserved forbidden truth. Stories spoke of a time when one ruler governed all the lands. Songs mentioned a crown that was hidden rather than destroyed. Folk tales described betrayal by foreign powers and promises of return. These were not fantasies, they were encoded memories. The kingdom's economy had once rivaled its neighbors. Coin hoards showed stable currency circulation. Trade records revealed exports of metals, timber, and crafted goods. Merchant guilds operated under standardized laws. This level of organization could not exist without state authority. The kingdom's disappearance altered European balance. Its removal allowed empires to expand unchecked. Trade routes were monopolized. Cultural diversity narrowed. The loss weakened regional autonomy and strengthened centralized control. Modern genetic studies added another layer. Populations across the region shared distinct genetic markers uncommon elsewhere. These markers formed a clear cluster, confirming long-term continuity. Despite political division, the people remained biologically connected. The kingdom was not destroyed in one moment. It was dismantled slowly, first politically, then culturally, then linguistically, finally psychologically. By the time maps changed, resistance had already been broken. What made the erasure successful was patience. Empires did not rely on mass slaughter. They relied on time. Laws replaced swords. Schools replaced armies. Silence replaced memory. Today, the kingdom exists only in fragments, a symbol on a church wall, a word in a dialect, a pattern in embroidery, a ruin in a forest. Each fragment is a piece of a puzzle deliberately scattered. Reconstructing its history challenges modern Europe's self-image. It reveals that borders are not ancient truth, but recent decisions. It exposes how power reshapes memory. It proves that entire nations can be erased without genocide, without ruins, without headlines. The mysterious kingdom that was erased from European maps stands as evidence that history is not only written by victors, it is also edited by them. And sometimes the most important stories are not the ones loudly celebrated, but the ones quietly removed. In the late 20th and early 21st centuries, renewed interest in suppressed histories brought the erased kingdom back into scholarly focus. Independent researchers working outside state institutions began connecting fragments that official academia had ignored. Their work revealed a consistent pattern of deliberate omission rather than accidental loss. Archived correspondence between imperial officials exposed strategic discussions about border legitimacy. Letters revealed concerns that acknowledging the former kingdom would encourage autonomy movements in newly absorbed regions. Maintaining silence was described as essential for long-term stability. The kingdom's absence from history was policy, not coincidence. One document described the kingdom as politically inconvenient. Another warned that restoring its name would complicate modern sovereignty. These were not ancient texts. They were written decades after the annexation, proving that the erasure continued long after the kingdom ceased to exist. Art history provided further confirmation. Religious paintings commissioned during early imperial rule depicted local figures wearing foreign clothing styles that did not match archaeological findings. This visual rewriting signaled an intentional reshaping of identity. Artists were instructed to align imagery with imperial aesthetics. Place names were altered systematically. Rivers, mountains, and towns were renamed to match the dominant language. Original names survived only in remote areas in private usage. Renaming erased not only geography, but memory. Without names, stories lose anchors. Legal continuity was broken deliberately. The kingdom's laws were declared invalid. Courts adopted foreign legal codes. Property ownership was reassigned. Nobility titles were abolished or reassigned to loyal collaborators. This dismantled the social structure that could have preserved identity. The kingdom's flag was never officially banned. It simply vanished. Its symbols were absorbed into decorative patterns stripped of meaning. Heraldry was rewritten. Coats of arms were redesigned. Visual identity dissolved quietly. During periods of political upheaval, brief windows of recognition appeared. Revolutionary governments considered restoring historical regions. Committees reviewed ancient maps. Draft proposals mentioned autonomy. Each time, geopolitical pressure shut the discussions down. The kingdom remained too dangerous to acknowledge. The danger was precedent. If one erased kingdom was restored to memory, others would follow. Empires depend on historical inevitability. Admitting manipulation threatens their foundations. Modern digital mapping revived suppressed data. When old maps were digitized, inconsistencies became obvious. Borders overlapped. Names vanished between editions. Scholars tracked these changes across centuries. The pattern was undeniable. The erased kingdom had once served as a buffer state. Its destruction destabilized a region permanently. Border conflicts, ethnic tensions, and identity crises followed. What had been a mediator became a fault line. Cultural revival movements emerged quietly. Communities began teaching children old songs. Local historians published self-funded books. Linguists recorded disappearing dialects. These efforts faced resistance, but continued nonetheless. The kingdom's legacy now exists in defiance. It survives because people refuse to forget. Its absence has become its presence. The gap in history draws attention precisely because it is empty. International recognition remains unlikely. Acknowledgement would require border re-evaluation and political accountability. Silence remains easier. The mysterious kingdom erased from European maps was not weak. It was inconvenient. It did not fit the narrative of inevitable empire. Its destruction was not a tragedy of war, but a calculation of power. History remembers what power allows it to remember. This kingdom proves that forgetting can be engineered, and that recovery begins with truth.